In 1973, in the remote, isolated village of Aethelburg, nestled in a valley forgotten by the mountains, time stopped. 112 souls, men, women, and children, vanished. There was no struggle, no violence, not a single body. They were simply gone, leaving behind homes filled with frozen life, tables set for dinners that were never eaten, toys scattered on floors, livestock waiting in the fields. The case became a grim legend, a cold case file gathering dust. 50 years later, a documentary crew arrived, determined to unearth the truth. There was Liam, the director, whose obsession with unsolved mysteries had led him here. There was Chloe, the historian, the voice of reason whose meticulous research formed the project's backbone. And there was Ben, the cameraman, whose eye behind the lens would capture the story the world had forgotten. They found Aethelburg just as the legends described, a silent wound in the landscape. Nature had begun to reclaim its own, with vines creeping up the walls of cottages and moss blanketing the cobblestone streets. The atmosphere was heavy, oppressive. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was watchful. It was the silence of a place that held a terrible secret. For the first few days, they documented the homes, each untouched artifact telling the story of an interrupted life. It was Chloe who found the diaries. Hidden beneath the loose floorboards of the priest's quarters were dozens of journals. The early entries spoke of daily life, of harvests and festivals, but gradually the tone shifted. The priest wrote of a sound, a low, constant hum that seemed to come from the mountain that loomed over the village, a mountain with a prominent, dark cave known locally as the Maw. At first, it was just a curiosity. Then it became a presence. He described how the hum began to seep into the villagers' dreams, promising a return, a oneness that would end all pain and suffering. The people changed. They grew calmer, their eyes holding a strange, distant serenity. They stopped tending their fields and mending their homes. Instead, they would spend hours just staring at the maw, as if awaiting an invitation. The final diary entry was a single sentence, scrawled in a shaky hand. "The call is for us all. We are one. Tonight, we go home." This discovery electrified the crew. The theory of a mass suicide cult seemed plausible, if chilling, but the real revelation was yet to come. In the damp cellar of the chapel, locked in a wooden chest, Ben found a stack of 8mm film canisters and an old projector. With trembling hands, they set up the equipment. The projector's flickering light danced on the stone wall, and Aethelburg of 1973 came back to life. The first reels were joyful, children playing, a wedding in the village square. They were grainy images of people who were alive, vibrant, and full of hope. Liam filmed the projection, capturing every moment for the documentary. But just like the diaries, the films changed. The people no longer smiled for the camera. Their faces were turned towards the mountain, their expressions identical, a mixture of yearning and absolute peace. The camera seemed to have been passed from hand to hand, documenting the village's collective transformation. Then came the last reel. The quality was poor, the footage shaky. The image showed a long line of people, the entire village. They walked slowly, methodically, out of their homes and up the path toward the maw. No one carried anything, no one spoke. Their movements were synchronized, as if they were a single organism moving with a singular purpose. The camera, now positioned on a tripod near the cave entrance, watched as the very last villager, a little girl clutching a rag doll, stepped into the blackness. For a moment, the screen was dark. The film was over. A heavy silence filled the cellar. They had their answer. A terrible, incomprehensible answer, but an answer nonetheless. "I need to digitize this, every frame," Ben said, his voice hoarse. He began to rewind the film slowly, examining it. The light was failing. The last few moments are almost silhouettes. Wait. He stopped on a specific frame, right at the end, just before the little girl. The crowd was dense, shoulder to shoulder. "Chloe, get the light over here. Liam, look at this." They huddled around the tiny film square. Ben pointed with his finger. At the back of the crowd, the resolution is terrible, but look at the faces. Chloe leaned in, her eyes narrowing. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Liam felt a cold dread wash down his spine, a chill that had nothing to do with the cellar's dampness. There, in the middle of the 1973 crowd, were three figures. Their clothes were wrong, simpler, but their faces, even through the grain and the distortion of time, were unmistakable. It was him, Liam, with his set jaw and intense stare. It was Chloe, her head tilted slightly as if analyzing something. And it was Ben, holding an older camera, much different from the one he used now, but in the same focused stance. It was them, their own faces, staring ahead with the same blank serenity as the other villagers, marching toward the cave 50 years ago. The projector whirred to a stop, plunging them back into silence. But it was no longer an empty silence. It now had a sound beneath it, a low, almost inaudible hum, the same hum from the diaries. It was coming from the direction of the mountain. They had been hearing it all along, dismissing it as wind or the buzz of drone equipment. Panic set in, cold and sharp. "That's impossible," Liam stammered. "It's a trick of the light, a flaw in the film." But he knew he was lying. Ben glanced at the monitor of his own camera, which was recording the scene. The image flickered. For a split second, the screen showed the three of them in the cellar, but not as they were. Their modern clothes were replaced with rough wool and cloth, their faces smudged with dirt, their eyes empty. The image switched back. The hum grew louder, no longer just a sound, but a vibration they felt in their bones. It was a pull, a promise of peace, of belonging, a wordless voice in their minds telling them it was time, time to join the others, time to go home. Chloe began to cry silently, but she didn't move to run. Liam looked down at his hands, half expecting to see them changed. Ben lowered his camera, his arms falling slack at his sides. Logic, fear, the instinct for survival, it all screamed at them to run, to get out of this cursed valley and never look back. But another part of them, an ancient, dormant part, was waking. That part felt no fear. It felt yearning. It felt like its long, confusing detour was finally at an end. Ben's camera, forgotten on the floor, continued to record. Its blinking red light was a lone beacon in the growing dark. It captured the moment the three of them turned, not to the exit, but to each other, a silent understanding passing between them. And then, as one, they began to walk, out of the cellar, not toward their car, but toward the path that led to the mountain, towards the inviting darkness of the maw, a place they now knew, explicitly, was their destination, a place they had never really left. This story was a presentation from Shadow Tales.